AI moves so fast, I swear every time I blink, everything has changed.
Yeah. Skills are a way to bring some knowledge into your AI. If you're in an organization, you probably have organizational skills about how your team writes code. All that a developer needs to do to get the organizational skills is just get the project. SkillsJars is just some tooling and an approach to how we can take skills and get them into our Maven repository.
Welcome to IntelliJ Idea Tech Talks, where we talk about tools, technology, software development, and anything else that we might find interesting. With me today is James Ward. Do you want to introduce yourself?
Yeah, so I work at AWS on agentic AI stuff, and I'm also Amazon's representative to the Agentic AI Foundation on the technical committee. So deep in the world of AI and having a blast.
So today we're going to talk about AI, obviously, and mostly you created a project called SkillsJars. We'd love to know more about that. So
we're going to dive in. Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, so do you want me just to give some background on?
Yeah, I think it would be helpful for people joining us who, AI moves so fast. I swear every time I blink, everything has changed.
Yeah.
So it's really difficult to stay on top of everything that's going on. So maybe we can start with what even are skills and why SkillsJars and how SkillsJars, etc.
So skills are a way to bring some knowledge into your AI. So there's a standard called agent skills.
Yes.
And this just defines a standard format for how you define these like knowledge files. And they can include code snippets. They can include just knowledge that the AI, you want to give the AI so that it's like more weighted towards particular things. It can also include process things. And so there's tens of thousands of skills out there now on the internet, and you can pull those into your AI and use them, and you can read about the specification and build your own skills. And so really a great way to like take something and capture it into a file so that then you can reuse it essentially.
Right, so it's basically like steering your AI in a certain direction, telling it what tech stack you want to use or what patterns or any other kind of skill that
like the models have a lot of general knowledge, but oftentimes when you're building something as a developer, you want to give it some specific knowledge. And it's not even that the model maybe doesn't even, the model probably has that knowledge already. It's just
but it has a bunch of other knowledge as well, so you want to steer it to use this.
I think about it kind of like gravity, like you're just putting some gravity in a particular direction.
Like adding weights in a certain
as an example of this, I created a skill which I'll show you. This is my skill up on my GitHub, and it's called the Zen of James. And so I took some knowledge about how I write code, and I put it into this skill. And so, for example, I state some things in here about how I write code and how I want my code to be written. So this is my skill, and anyone can go pull that skill down. It's just a markdown file and use that skill and integrate it into their AI code assistant, whatever that may be. But I use this all the time. Like this is, whenever I'm writing code, I'm reusing my own skill so that any code that gets written by the code assistant is going to be in my style, essentially.
Right. So that means that we can now all write code the way that James Ward would write code if we pull down this skill?
Absolutely, yeah.
Awesome.
And that's my hope in life is
that
all code would be written like my code.
Okay.
That's what I'm aiming for here.
Cool.
So I've got the Zen of James skill, and it's got a bunch of different things that I think about when I write code in it. But we could pull this markdown file in, and you can clone the repo, you could download the file. There's lots of different ways that you could then consume that, and there's now like skill managers that would be
skill
a way
repositories
to
where you can find all kinds of skills. We have our own JetBrains skill repository where we have some of the skills that we think are useful and that we vetted and that we think are safe to use as well. So you can pull those inside your IDE. Or you can add your own inside the IDE if you want.
Yeah, well, I'll show some of that in a few minutes.
Yep.
So yeah, there's many different ways to consume skills. And
Exactly.
so when I started writing skills and working with skills, I was like, okay, like this is, there's different ways that you can do that consumption. But as a Java, Kotlin, Scala developer, I was like, I would really like to have these skills in the package management system that I already use. And so that's Maven, Gradle, SBT, that sort of thing. I was like, okay, what we could do is actually package these skills up into jar files and put them on Maven Central. And that way you can deal with skills just like you deal with any other dependencies in your system. You get versioning, you get the ability to do code scanning audits, just like you would do on any other dependency in your system.
Right, so that would mean that if there are problems or security vulnerabilities with a particular skill, and those are
you would discover
disclosed,
that in the same way.
and you would discover it in the same way, or if there's new versions of the skill,
that's right.
Tools like Dependabot or Renovate could pick that up and say, hey, you might want to update your skill. I don't know, if frameworks start writing their own skills on, best practices for the framework, and then you can stay up to date with the framework as well. That would be great.
Part
or
of the
migration
original,
skills even,
That was part of the original idea, was that frameworks and libraries could actually have skills alongside their library. And so if you're a consumer of a particular framework or library, you should just automatically be able to get the skills associated with that. And so that piece is still kind of coming together, but I think that'll happen over time. And because we're in the same package management system, you don't have to do like a two-step dance to like get the library and get the skill for it. It's like that should all just be in one package essentially. And we can do that when we use our package manager that we already have.
Yeah, because we were talking earlier, like, why wouldn't I just copy an MD file into my project?
Yeah.
Then I have to,
and you could, but why? Well, if we can make it easier.
It would just work. TM. So, but then you'd have to figure out, like, how do I version this file? What if I want to use the same skill in multiple projects? Theoretically, I could edit it different ways in different projects, and having it versioned would make it more uniform, plus the benefits of having it security scanned and things like that.
Yeah, and then also, if you're in an organization, you probably have organizational skills, things about how your team writes code, that sort of thing.
Yeah.
And so being able to have those in a easy distributable way, and then also have them like part of your build process, so that that a developer needs to do to get the organizational skills is just get the project, and then the build is then going to have the skills that the team needs. And then we can even do transitive dependencies, because the dependency manager has the ability to package skills, in our case, into skill sets, right?
That's an actual term, or we made that up yesterday.
We made that up, yeah. But
if you want to have either individual skills or sometimes the skills go together. My friend Kuba Markwitsky, he pointed me towards a set of skills called superpowers, and it's actually like a set that kind of goes together. So you have like a brainstorming skill, a writing plan skill, and a bunch of others, and you can have your whole process. So you basically have like a skill set. Can I package that and then import that into my projects?
Yeah, exactly. So the project that I built for this is called SkillsJars.
Yes.
And SkillsJars is just some tooling and an approach to how we can take skills and get them into our Maven repository, whether that's Maven Central or our own internal Nexus or whatever it may be. And so I'll show you the SkillsJars website. So here we can search through the available skills that are in SkillsJars. We can also publish other skills. But to do what you're talking about, where we would create a skill set with multiple skills in it, you could either do that on your own. We'll talk a little bit more about publishing in a little bit, where you create your own skills jar. If you do publish it from a GitHub repository on SkillsJars, then what will happen is there's a skill per jar file, but then you could create kind of the meta layer that would then have transitive dependencies on all the skills that you would want in a skill set. Because this is all just normal dependency management stuff.
Yep.
Yeah.
Meaning that all of the tools that we have around dependency management we can use, and we can see which skills we have in our project, etc.
Yep, exactly. And so I've packaged up my Zen of James skill. So if I come in here and search for that, we can see here's the Maven coordinates to go get the Zen
So we
of
can
James
all
skill.
write code like you do.
Absolutely, that's the goal. Yeah, and you'll see that it's versioned.
Would that mean we all start writing Scala, or is that not
Ideally.
in there?
I like to write Scala, but I also write Java and Kotlin. And
Yeah.
Yeah, and just whatever.
Your skill would work with any of those languages, or?
Yeah.
Okay,
Yeah.
cool.
Yeah, it gets a little bit harder to live out the Zen of James when you're in a language that maybe doesn't
Have
fit
static
with
typing, or?
yeah, or things like easy immutability or being expression oriented.
Yeah.
So the living out the full Zen of James is easiest in Scala, but
But Kotlin and Java would also work?
yeah, for sure.
Cool.
We're gonna try it.
Oh, cool.
Yeah. So on SkillsJars, if you do deploy a SkillsJar through the website from a GitHub repo, it does a security scan using AI to look at the actual contents of the skill. And I wouldn't 100% trust it, but it does try to identify some risks, and it won't deploy it if the risk seems too high.
Right,
And
so if someone tries to publish a skill with some malicious code in there, hopefully the security
It should
scanning
find it,
will
yeah.
find that.
Yep. Yeah, and so this is just the listing of the skills jars, both the ones that are deployed directly through the website, and then you can also add the custom ones. So like my Zen of James one, that's in the com.jamesward group ID.
You publish that separately.
Yep, I publish it separately to Maven Central. And then there's documentation here, so we can see things like how do I actually use these skills jars, how do I publish my own
with the
skills
security
jars.
warning to make sure that you know what skills you're installing and that they don't have unintended side effects.
That's right. Yeah, so that's skills and skills jars. I do want to show you how we actually use these things.
Yes,
Is that where we go
please,
next?
let's do that.
Okay, so I'm over here in IntelliJ, and I've set up a project here that I'm going to walk you through. And so the first thing that I want to show is that if we want to use skills jars for our AI code assistant, then we need some way to actually specify the skills jars that we're using, but then also give those over to the AI code assistant. So that
Files need to be in a certain place for the code agent to find them.
That's right.
So just having the dependency in our build file doesn't automatically do that. So how do we do that?
Yeah, so first we use this, I'm in Maven in this case. There's also Gradle and SBT plugins that do the same thing. But we need this plugin that's going to do an extraction of the skills jars. First, the dependency manager will pull them down, and then we can extract them out to the file system.
Right.
If an agent harness had direct support for skills jars, we obviously wouldn't have to do
that would be
step.
even better.
That would be nice. That's maybe someday we can
Who
dream.
knows?
Yeah, but so for now we need to extract them. So I've specified the directory to extract to here.
Right.
In this case, .agent/skills. And the reason why I picked that directory is because that directory in IntelliJ is just supported by the AI code assistant. So
Right.
It finds the skills
in our
automatically.
AI code assistant, we can use different types of agents, and they can all find this skill then.
Yep,
So, because I sometimes switch between agents and models
Yeah.
to see what works best.
Yeah, it should all just work. So then I've got my actual skills jars dependencies here. So I'm depending on my Zen of James skill. And then I also put in here the Spring testing skills, which are a good set if you're using Spring. This particular application does use Spring, so that would be a useful skill to pull in.
Yep.
So this is in my build file. So now when other people use this project, they're going to be able to get the skills through the same method that I'll show you. So
Having some testing skills is actually probably a good idea, because I've seen some of the tests that AI generates that are trained on the general code out there, and I've
Yeah.
also seen some of the tests that developers write out there or don't
it's
write.
a really good place for
And
a skill.
That's a good place to have a skill on how you want to properly write tests, I think.
Yeah, for sure. And so those are some good ones. Okay, so let me show you how we do the extraction. So that Maven plugin that I added, the skills jars one, it has a task here called extract.
Right.
And so when I run that task, it's going to look at the skills jars that I have, and then it's going to extract them out to that directory. So you do need to do that extraction step. Likely what somebody would do...
You could probably tie that to a goal, and then Maven could do it for you?
Yeah, totally. Or you put it in your agents.md and have your agent do it. So yeah, multiple different ways.
Like do it, check whether it's there, otherwise do it. Yeah.
Okay, so it did the extraction there, and so now we can see the .agent skills, and then we see my Zen of James, and we see the MD file here. So in the MD file, there's an important part of skills, which is this front matter, which is the metadata about the skill. And the reason for having this separate metadata section is that you don't want to have a bunch of context bloat usually with a skill.
Right. You might not need all of the skills all of the time.
That's right.
And by having the front matter, that tells the agent which skills it has, and then it can go find them when it needs them.
Exactly right. Yeah, so we get this like progressive loading where we just have a little bit of the metadata sent to the AI, and then the AI can tell us if it wants to receive the rest of the content.
So depending on whether you want to token max for the leaderboard or you want to actually save your tokens, this is a good or a bad idea.
That's right. Yeah, you can do it however you want. I mean, you could just put the whole skill into the description if you really want to token max that. So.
Yep.
Okay, so that's my Zen of James skill there now loaded in. Now, if we go over in IntelliJ to my settings, there's the skills here under the AI assistant, and you'll see that now it has found those skills that I'd extracted out from the skills jars, and now the AI assistant will be able to use those skills. And so we can go give this a test, but before we do, there's some other cool things in here. So I've got my installed skills, but I've also got this catalog, the marketplace of skills that JetBrains.
Our skill registry that we can use.
Yep. So different ways to get skills. So now let's go over to the AI code assistant, and let's just make sure that it all actually works. So I'm going to say like summarize the Zen of James, and we'll see if that particular string.
Junie?
Yep, I'm using Junie. I'm not in brave mode now, but maybe we'll try brave mode later.
No, I don't use brave mode because I am not brave. And I think we had this discussion yesterday. Yeah.
So you'll see that Junie did figure out that it had a skill called Zen of James, and so it went and read that skill file and then sent that information to the model, and then we see the summarization of what my Zen of James. Yeah. So that's great, and that all works. But let's do something like with code. I can say like analyze the project against the Zen of James, and now it's going to actually use that skill to look at the code in this project. And this is a Java project, so this particular project is probably not going to be super well aligned to the Zen of James, even though I wrote this code. I think when I wrote this code,
so you can actually now the Zen of James can also judge the actual code of James?
I mean, the AI is going to do it, right? Yeah. So that gets a little wild, huh? I can use my own Zen to judge my code.
And does that make you Zen or not?
I'm not sure yet. We're going to find out. We're going to find out what it says about this. So now it's going to go through, Junie's going to go through a long process of looking at all the code, judging everything using that skill. So this is just an example of how we can use a particular skill in our code assistant with the AI assistant there, and it will give us the full report on everything. We'll see. It's probably going to work through a bunch of stuff, so we can keep chatting while
so it's going to spit out all of the list of you should change this, that, or the other. Or it might actually go and change that already.
I could have told it to change it. I think I told it to analyze it. But if I had I could have told it like, hey, use the skill and update.
I was just thinking while you were doing that okay, you know how you have a team and then someone new joins the team and they have very set opinions on what code should look like.
Yeah.
So now they can all write their own Zen of whomever skill, and then when they join a team, they can just rewrite everything into their style.
Totally. Yeah.
Oh.
Yeah. Yes. Fun times.
And then someone else joins and they rewrite it in another style. And
yeah. Okay. So it gave me the report. Oh man, I need to certainly update this code.
Apparently you don't write code the way James would.
What is going on? It's a good thing I have a skill to help me with that.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Okay, so we're using the skill. That's great. Somebody also created an IntelliJ plugin for SkillsJars already.
Okay,
so
that's
I've
cool.
got that installed, and it's just a browser of the skills that we have installed, and so we can come in here and see the Zen of James and see the description and stuff.
So the plugin shows the skills that you have installed on the project, or it shows
it's using the build, yeah. So it's the ones
Right.
that are actually defined in the build, and this thing's brand new. So I think we could. I'm going to pull this
because can
officially into
can we
the-
see them also in the Maven tool window? Yeah, we should be able to
Yeah,
see the dependencies,
yeah,
right? So
yeah.
this
Yeah,
is
so
just
like
if you
they're in
want
the
just
palm.
the view on the
Yeah.
skills that you have installed, you
Yeah.
can, because the Maven tool window or Gradle tool window would include all of the dependencies.
Yep.
So
Yep.
the skills, but also all of the other dependencies.
Yep.
Right. Okay.
Yep. Yeah, and it's just normal dependencies, which is what we want. We want to use.
Yep.
We want to have our skills be just normal, any kind of normal dependency.
And use them the way we use dependencies exactly.
Yep.
Yep.
So that's using SkillsJars with a AI code assistant, in this case, the JetBrains AI assistant and Junie. And this would all work just fine with any AI code assistant that
Yep.
supports skills, which is pretty much all of them now, and CLIs, whatever people want to use for their code assistant. like it's you can use SkillsJars with it. So that's
Yes.
all good, and I think that's a good use for SkillsJars. But there's another one that I want to show you.
I just wanted to mention that, where you use Junie in this example, but we do support other coding agents as well.
Yeah.
So if you're using JetBrains AI, you can use different agents and different models, and you can also bring your own key and use your key for whatever agent you're
Yeah.
using that is supported by ACP, and use that inside IntelliJ IDEA. So
It's fantastic. So at AWS, we have our own code assistant called Kiro.
Exactly.
And Kiro supports ACP. And
So
so
you
I
use
use
Kiro
in,
inside.
Yep, inside there.
So you can use your preferred agents. We're agent agnostic. You can use ours, but you can use different ones as well.
Yep,
So,
that's great. And skills should work just like we've seen.
For all the agents that
Yep.
support skills.
Yeah, exactly.
Cool.
Yeah. Okay, so that's our AI code assistant kind of use case for SkillsJars. But there's another one that I want to show you. So sometimes we build our own agents. There's lots of valid cases where users maybe aren't developers, or you want to build some kind of custom agent. And there's lots of different agent frameworks out there and libraries to use. I do a lot with Spring AI, and so that's when I'm building custom agents or teaching people how to build custom agents, then Spring AI is one of the options that I use. Coog is also a great option that
Yep.
I've used. And so I have a Spring AI project. This whole project
For
actually is
people, because they've probably heard of Spring AI, I hope they heard of Coog. Do you want to quickly explain?
Oh, sure. Yeah.
For people who might not have heard of it.
Yeah, so Spring AI and Coog are ways to build your own custom agents and
Yes.
talk to AI models.
And Mbabel by Rod Johnson being
Mbabel's
another one.
Great one. Yeah, in the JVM world, we have a number of great options now.
Right.
LangChain4j is also on that list, and then there's a number of others. So we've got lots of ways to build our own AI agents or systems on top of AI.
Yep.
So I'm using Spring AI in this case to show how we can do SkillsJars with our own custom agent, and that's the code that I'll dive into. But a little bit of background on the AI side. So when we're building something on top of AI, we need a model. And so at AWS, we have something called Bedrock, and Bedrock is our model provider. In this case, I'm using the OpenAI GPT OSS 120 billion model. And so I've set that up.
I think I've seen you and Josh were speaking, and you were showing Bedrock, and it contains like a bunch of models, including also Melum, which is one of
That's
our
right,
models
it does,
for
yeah.
code completion. So
Yeah, it would have been fun to try Melum in this, but that's more of like a code completion model
Yes,
than what I'm using for the agent that I'm building for this example.
if you were building a code completion agent, that would be a model to try.
Yeah. So I've set up my laptop with my AWS Bearer token so I can talk to Bedrock. I've told it I'm using the OpenAI SDK and given it the endpoint, and then I've told it which model to use. And then I've also set up a parameter here for where to find the SkillsJars. So SkillsJars put these skills into a particular directory so that we can have consistency on where to go looking in the class path for those things. And so it's just meta-inf skills. And so that's where we know to go look for skills. And so I've set up my configuration there. Now for the actual application, this is just the most basic AI agent that I could possibly build that has support for skills and doing some things. So in the world of Spring AI, there's a library, which let me go back to the Palm and I'll show you. There's a little library that I'm using, which is from the Spring AI community, and it's called the Agent Utils. And Agent Utils has support for skills. And so because we can specify our dependencies on SkillsJars, and then we can also use this Spring AI Agent Utils, those two then can work together to provide our agent access to our skills. And so I've got my Agent Utils dependency, but then I've also got this dependency on a SkillsJar, which is the PDF skill from Anthropic.
And so, what does that do?
So that one is just some information about how to create PDF files using Python. And so a lot of these skills that are going to do something dynamic have some like code snippets in the skill. And then the intention is that then the agent will actually write a file out with the code, usually Python, sometimes JavaScript or something, and then run it to actually do some kind of dynamic behavior. And so it's going
to implement the functionality to create the PDF
Yep.
file from the skill.
Yep.
That has the code snippets on how to build something that generates PDFs.
Yep. Yep.
Okay.
I believe the skill also has, we could go look at it, but I believe it also has some details on how to like parse PDFs and pull information out of them, extract things out. So it's kind of just your
and fill
general
the
purpose
placeholders
PDF.
In the PDF so you don't end up with Kevlin Hennies or...
That would be amazing if it did that, because
sure
filling
that they're
in
all
PDF
filled,
forms is not one of the more fun activities.
Yeah, so now we don't have to write that code anymore. We can have an agent do that for us. That's kind of nice.
Hopefully, yeah.
Hopefully.
Yeah, I mean, if you've got the skill that provides that information, then yes.
Right.
Okay, so we've got those dependencies set up. I'll then walk through the actual agent here that I've built. So first I'm using the skills tool, and I'm pointing it at the directory in the class path where the skills actually exist on the class path because they're set up as dependencies. I print the tool definition out just so we can see what that looks like when we run it. And then I've got a few other tools that I'm providing. I want to give it access to shell commands, be able to run things, and then file system access to read and write files.
So you're not brave, but you are giving the agent access to your shell.
Yeah, I mean, this is just for my uses, so I feel pretty comfortable about it. If I was going to run this on a production server, that would be different story.
Yeah.
Then Spring has this concept of advisors, which are just like interceptors for calls to the AI model and responses back. We're going to use this to kind of wire everything together and then also log what is actually happening underneath the covers. And then in Spring AI, I create a chat client. This chat client can have like a system message, a system prompt. It can have the place where we define the tools. So I give it my skills tools, I give it my shell tools, and then I give it my advisors. Now this chat client becomes my interface to the LLM. And so then I'm going to do a while loop where I get my very terrible text UI here for this application just to like be able to send messages and see the responses.
So you're a back-ender just like me then?
Yeah, I'm not so good at the UI stuff. So okay,
I'm so happy other people do that.
Yeah.
Or
right?
maybe now with skills I can do it too.
You can. There's some really great skills for web development now.
But
worth a try.
Yep.
Yeah. Okay, so let's run this agent and give this thing a try. The AI is non-deterministic, so we'll see if it works today.
Praying to the demo gods. Yes.
Yeah, that's right. Yep. Okay, so before we give it our message, we can see the information. So technically underneath the covers, the way that the skills tool works to expose the skills to my agent is it adds a message into the prompt that says, hey, I've got some additional skills that you can use. Just let me know, which is a tool call. Let me know if you want any of those skills loaded in as well. And then
right, so that's again the progressive way of loading them. So instead of loading all of them, it's like they're available. If you need them, ask me. Okay.
Yep. And so then we can see that it lists the available skills. The only one that I have defined as a dependency for this agent is
What's
that
the PDF
PDF one.
Yep.
And so we get the name, we get the description, and then there's some other debugging information about input schemas and how we do that. Okay, so great, this looks like it's all set up. So the test that I want to try is I'm going to tell it create a PDF with the current directory listing. And what this should do is start firing off a bunch of messages to the LLM. The LLM is going to say like, okay, I need the PDF skill, so it's going to load that in. Then it's going to write a Python file based on what that skill provided. Then it's going to get a current directory listing. Then it's going to try to execute the Python with that. And because I'm on Windows, it sometimes struggles a little bit with some of the file paths and some of the executions. I refreshed my directory list, my project here, and I see now a directory listing.pdf. Let's go open this thing up in the associated application. And there we see, sure enough, it did actually create the PDF. There's probably a Python file laying around somewhere in a temp directory. Fun little side note on this one. The reason why I told it to create a PDF with the current directory listing is that I needed some like dynamic content, because if I just tell it to create a PDF that says hello world, the model actually knows how to create a PDF.
Exactly.
Like it knows the bytes or whatever, to the base 64 bytes to create a hello world PDF.
Yeah,
and
because
so,
that's in the training material. You want to give it at least something
a
little more challenging.
Exactly.
Not a lot,
exactly.
just a little.
Yeah.
Yep.
So this is just like one example of using a skills jar that I've set as a dependency, wired up to my own custom agent. And I don't know if this is a good use case or not, like if this is the best way to create PDFs, probably not. But you could imagine all the skills that exist, or the skills that you may want to build, you could pull in and use in the same way. And maybe it's procedural information, maybe it's code execution like this one, maybe it's just like a policy document that you want to pull in and have that be part of your agent. So lots of different ways that this could be used. I don't know if this particular use works for a demo, but may not be the most useful
That's
thing.
the downsides of demos. They need to be like small and self-contained enough while still useful, which is a challenge. Yep.
Yeah.
Maybe we need a skill for that, creating good demos.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. We do.
Okay, so thanks for that. So if I have skills that I would like to publish, or maybe I have found some skills that I would like to be able to use as dependencies, how would I go about that?
Yeah, so there's two different ways I want to walk you through. So on SkillsJars.com, you can go into the main screen here, and we can click Publish a Skills Jar, and then you give it the GitHub org and repo, and then hit deploy, and that'll take care of doing the security scanning, doing the packaging, and the deployment to Maven Central. Those go up under the com.skillsjars org ID, group ID.
Right.
And so that's one way to do it.
And that means then that the repo has to be on GitHub. So if it's on GitLab or somewhere else, you can't use this mechanism.
I could add support for other places.
Feature requests.
But
yes.
Good feature request. Right now it's just GitHub.
Right, and it also means that if the repo has multiple skills in there, each would be published as a separate jar, like you mentioned.
Right.
So if you want to publish a set of skills or a skill set, you heard it here first. This is a new term that we just made up.
Love it.
And then you would have to publish it yourself.
Yep.
Right? So
and so there is a way to publish your own skills jars. And this would be, you could use this for what you said, where you want more control over the structure of the skills jars. Maybe you want it in your own group ID. You want it, not to have to be manually deployed by skills jars. Like you want it part of your CI/CD release pipeline.
Or if you have a set of skills that actually work together, like the superpower skill that has like the brainstorming, writing plans, and a whole process around it, you can package those as a skill set.
Yeah, that's right.
TM.
And so, exactly. The documentation page here has information on how you create your own custom SkillsJars. So there's Maven and Gradle plugins to do that, and there's some documentation here on how you set that all up and how you do the publishing, and then it's just standard jar publishing to Maven Central. So but there is a specific format that the SkillsJars kind of follows and places to put files. And
you mentioned putting them in the meta-in file. Does the plugin do that automatically, or does it check that you did that, or however that works? Okay.
It does both of those things. So the easy way to publish your own skills, and so super easy. I think growing ecosystem of SkillsJars, and excited to see more people contribute. If you do want to get your SkillsJar listed on the website here, and you've published it on your own, to do that, there is a way. So if you go to GitHub,
that's so people can actually find the skill via SkillsJars.
That's right.
.com.
Yep. So on the GitHub SkillsJars project, there is a file here, where is it? Those are some icons, not those. Maybe in application.conf. There we go. Okay, so in application.conf, we list the additional orgs and potentially artifacts to include in that listing. So you just send me a pull request, and then your additional SkillsJars would show up on the website as well.
Right. If you publish your own skills and you want them to show up on the skillsjars.com website, you create a pull request to this repo with your group ID.
Yep.
Okay.
Exactly.
Cool.
Yep.
So far we see that SkillsJars has published, James Ward has published, what a surprise, and the Spring AI community. So that's Mark and others who are publishing stuff. Yeah. And do you have any idea how many people are deploying skills via your website? Or
that's a good question. So it's a long list now, and I didn't do all these, so people are using it.
Yep.
I probably need some. I've got the search, but maybe they need some paging of data now that the list has gotten pretty long.
You can get an agent to do pagination, I'm sure.
Yeah. I mean, of course, the in IntelliJ with the AI assistant is how I built this whole thing, right?
Oh, okay, yeah.
Yeah, of course.
Yeah, because we were talking like, what other fun stuff do we do with AI? So you've built SkillsJars for AI, basically, with AI.
Yeah.
You have your AI for JVM website where you list all the tools that we can use on the JVM.
Yeah. So AI for JVM.com. I definitely had AI build this website because I'm not very good at HTML and CSS.
Same.
And this is just a list of resources of AI things in the JVM ecosystem. So you've got Coog and Tracy by JetBrains. That's a good one.
Yep.
And one of the best names for a tracing.
Right. We were talking about that yesterday. Like, naming things is hard. I can't believe no one else. Like, it's so obvious. I can't believe no one thought of it yet, but it works out good for us then.
Yeah. So anyway, I created that site, of course, using AI Code Assistant. I think I used the JetBrains AI Assistant on that one. And it's pretty good at CSS, which I'm so grateful for. So
you know the meme about CSS is easy or CSS is difficult, where it just goes outside of the box, right? Yeah.
And then also, I build a lot of MCP servers, and so one of those that I built is for javadocs.dev, and so javadocs.dev is just Java docs from libraries on Maven Central, and it also has an MCP server. And so I use this all the time in my agents to give them access to up-to-date documentation. The typical way that the agent does this is that it pulls down the jar file and then it extracts it out to the file system and then just like greps through it. And I'm like, no, I want to have like actual search. I want to have like the ability to pull in source files as well. And so anyways, that's one of my fun little MCP server projects that I have. And I use it all the time in my agent, or my agent uses it all the time.
And other people can use that too?
Oh yeah, just go to javadocs.dev. And then I have an MCP server for my book, so this book? Which you have. Thank you for having my book.
Well, thank you for giving that to me. I earned it fair and square at Dev to Next conference, which is run by our friend Venkat. in beautiful Colorado.
Yeah.
So you should all go to that.
So effect-oriented programming, we released the book about 1.5 years ago. And the concept of the book is to show people a new paradigm for how you structure code to be more reliable, more testable. And it's how I build all of my stuff now is in an effect-oriented way. So I'm a big fan of that approach to kind of code architecture. I won't go into what the details are, but the book has an MCP server. And this is cool because maybe you don't want to actually read the book. Maybe you just want your AI to read the book.
I would like to very much acquire the knowledge from all of the books that I have through osmosis, but lacking that, maybe an MCP server. Sure.
Yeah, I think it's a good alternative to osmosis is the MCP for the book. Yeah.
So if I have the book, does that mean that I can get access to the MCP server, or how does that work?
So we sell the book through LeanPub, and the way that I currently have the MCP server set up is that to log into the MCP server, you have to have purchased the book through LeanPub. I probably could come up with another way to verify. Maybe you have to send me a picture of like the physical book next to you, and then I'll give you access or something. I don't know. It gets a little tricky because of how we sell it through LeanPub, but there's other things we could do. I could have just a list of my friends or something.
Maybe you could give me access to the MCP server and I could try that out.
That'd be great.
That would be great.
Yeah, let's do that.
Cool.
Yeah, so I think that's my main AI things that I've been working on and playing with. I did create a fun ACP project because I wanted to dive into the ACP protocol a little more. It was a fun way to like remote control an ACP session through the browser. It's like a web interface for ACP, which you could access even remotely. So that was a fun little ACP project. But so I don't know. I'm just always, it's so fun with AI because I just dive in and start building things and, use IntelliJ and love it. And so it's been great.
It's just so hard for me anyway, like to find the time for all of the ideas that you have to actually do them. Do you not fry your brain with all of these different projects that you have going on at the same time?
Totally. Yeah, I think that's the hard part is just kind of keeping them all in my head all at the same time. And what happens is I must have some very small like cache in my brain because I'll start building something and then completely forget about it because I've moved on to the next thing. And then usually what happens is at some point down the road, I'm like, I've got a great idea. And then I start building it again, the same thing. And then
that you've already built, that you forgot about.
And forgotten about.
Oh my God.
It's definitely challenging. Now that we've got these amazing AI tools that are helping us build things, is my brain has become the bottleneck for sure.
Yep. I feel that way as well. So anything we want to leave them with? I think we wanted to ask for SkillsJar, what are some of the favorite skills that you have found that you find useful? Maybe you can leave them in the comments for us, or, publish them via SkillsJar so everyone can use them.
Yes.
And can find them there. But yeah, I'm really curious what people are using to, make an essentially non-deterministic thing that we're trying to now make more deterministic by adding all of this stuff on top, like MCP servers and skills. And
yeah, I would love to hear what people are using for their skills. And there's so many skills out there now. So I want to hear what people want in SkillsJars and how to help them be more successful with their AI stuff. So
and if they have requests for SkillsJars, they create issues on the GitHub.
They can
repo,
just deploy them on their own.
Well, they can deploy the skills, but if they have feature requests or things that they want from SkillsJars, how would they let you know?
Yeah, on the SkillsJars GitHub. So it's SkillsJars on GitHub.
Yep, you showed that earlier. All right, well, thanks so much for walking us through that. And thanks so much for joining me here.
Yeah,
and,
thanks for having me. Super fun to run through all that stuff and fun times.
Yep, thanks. All right, thanks for joining. And, don't forget to like and subscribe if you want more of these types of videos. Thank you. See you next time.